As you know, if you've been viewing or listening to the Church Answers podcast for any time, and it's just kind of unbelievable that this particular episode is number 110 because I call this a new podcast. But when you do three a week, I know they're short, 10 minutes or less. When you do three a week, though, they add up quickly. And, I love doing them. I feel sorry for Alana and others who have to listen to this and have to sit through all of these, and then the editor who does the editing of it. And I mean, I enjoy them, but there are a lot of people that are listening and viewing Thom Rainer, and I just wonder how they do it. Just wonder how they do it. Hey, it's my always my joy to thank Belay providing Church Answers podcast to you, the listener and the viewer. They are the ones who are paying all the bills for this to happen, and they're the ones that allow you to have it as a free ministry to you. I'm trying my best to provide you relevant and biblical and current information about some things that are happening, and I will continue to do so. But thank Belay, the productivity expert, the organization that provides you the people you need for your organization. And again, you're going to get some incredible folks. I've said it many times. We've always had someone at Church Answers from Belay. Just a word on their download that they've been making available. It's called The Power of Productivity eBook. Just go to text Thom at 55123. That is THOM, Thom. Okay, the issue of streaming services became a hot issue during the pandemic, especially during the quarantine portion of the pandemic, where church doors were closed, and how do we get our worship services out? One thing I got to say is churches were absolutely creative and innovative, and those streaming services were not new. Just the number of churches that went to streaming, number of churches that went to digital giving and have not gone back because they see how much the giving increases, and someone is on regular plan giving, such as digital giving. But streaming services, there's been a lot of shift in that. And there was a prediction. I remember going on a podcast where the host insisted that this was going to be the way that most people go to church, streaming services. It's just the future. I didn't know enough to know enough. I mean, the pandemic and the quarantine portion of the pandemic were just so new and just so dramatic that all I could do is wait to see what would happen. But I want to tell you some updates on this. We've been following streaming services from the time they were introduced in the church to evaluating them post-quarantine. And now that we are, nearly 3 years removed from that period for most churches, I think it's a good time just to give you an update on streaming services. I got 5 things that I want to share with you, and just do with it what you can. I hope some of it will be productive for you. Well, one thing is the number of views, as a rule, are much lower than the peak. Much, much lower than the peak. Obviously, the peak happened during the pandemic, but obviously the peak was a high point that continued on for some time, but then it began to go down and down. And all of the forecasts about this is the way everybody is going to go to church, or most people are going to go to church, it was not fulfilled. And the number of downloads or views, however you measure it, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, or you have it coming from your site, or all of the above, the number of views are much less. And I know some churches like to use a multiple. We're going to assume maybe 2 or 2.5 people are watching per view. Anecdotally, that's not the case either. I mean, views are just down. It is not as pervasive as it once was. Now, what has it done? It has been an incredible source for guests. As a matter of fact, I've heard some people say when they move to a town, if a church does not have streaming services, they're not going to visit that church because they want to look at least at the recorded portion of your streaming services to evaluate you. They used to go to get the address and to get the time of service, and then they'd go to your service. No, they are going to see what your church is like through the services. So here's my point. Even though not many people are viewing it, if you don't have streaming services, I have little doubt that you will be cutting down on the number of people who actually visit your church, because this has become a front door for many guests. They are going to view what's happening at church. They want to see how you dress. They They want to hear the music. They want to hear some of the preaching. And, whether you think that's valid reasons or not, that's up to you. But I just want to say, this is how many guests are streaming churches today. So even though the views are lower, streaming services are still very, very important. All right, let's begin to talk about some of the other things. It's necessary for you to have at least an indication above the fold. That's newspaper language, but when you open your smartphone or you open your Mac or your PC, and the first thing you see, usually above the fold, but at least where they don't have to scroll too much, it's very important for you to have it on the front page, as visible as possible. We always say have the time of services and the street address for the GPS on the front page above the fold. Well, this is another thing. Even if the link has to refer them to another platform like YouTube or Facebook, you need to have that link there, because that's what your potential guests are going to be looking for. Your members aren't going to go watch a sermon again. They're not going to listen to the music again. But you need to have that streaming link visible and well stated, clear, because that's what guests are going to look at. So go back to your website, see how important you are making your streaming services, because that's the guests who are coming through. Fourth, in case you're counting these, first, much lower views. Secondly, it's very important for guests. Third, it needs a prominent place on the website. Fourth, the quality needs to be good. And here's what I hear from smaller churches and churches that don't think they have enough money to have a good streaming service. They say, we can't afford it. I want to tell you what you can afford. You can afford to have a quality audio of the sermon and video, audio and video. You can afford that. Now, the expenses really come in on the music side, because it's the mix, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. You have to have someone who can truly understand the mix, because if you're just recording with a single mic, the music in the church, it sounds awful. It absolutely sounds awful. But you, at the very least, can have the pastor preaching and have a good video and a good audio of that. Well, Tom, what if we don't have the money for a good mixer and all the equipment necessary for the music? Don't do the music. Again, I know that people may be coming there to just see what the music's like, or to or listen to what the music's like, or to be able to look at the church members. But I tell you, it's going to do you more harm than good if it's bad music. And it could be good music, but it just could mean that your streaming equipment and how you mix the music is not good. And so I would just say, do the preaching only if the music does not come across. If you don't have the resources, they're coming more affordable too. But if you don't have the resources for a good music mix, and that's the fifth thing, the music mix. That's the thing where you need a little more investment. That's the thing where you need to make certain that you have higher quality equipment. And again, not every church can afford all that is necessary. I haven't even priced it lately, but I'll just say this: if you cannot get the music to be high quality, don't do it at all. Maybe in time you can get the high quality and you get someone who knows what they're doing, but don't do it at all. So what are we learning about streaming? Views are way down. If you could see me on the video, if you listen on audio, I just pointed my finger way down. Secondly, it is imperative to have streaming service, at least the sermon, because guests are going to check you out. Third, it is imperative to have it at the link to the streaming services at a prominent place on the website. Fourth, quality is important, and don't let the size of your church and resources be an excuse. You can do it. And fifth, if the music mix is not good, don't provide the music. Of course, it's always better to provide the music, but don't provide lousy sounding music. Okay, we'll continue to watch this trend. We'll continue to talk to you about it, but this is what we're finding out about streaming services. Thank you, as always, Belay, for being our partner and delivering these messages on an ongoing basis. Go to belaysolutions.com, our friends who are the productivity experts. We'll see you in the next episode.